It was said that among the ruins of the desert monasteries, where wind and silence reigned, a book had once been kept in secrecy, never allowed to see the light of day. The monks who guarded it swore their lives to silence, bound by oaths older than the church itself. This was not the Bible, nor the Gospels, nor even the Apocrypha known to scholars. It was something far more ancient. They called it Liber Jubileorum, the Book of Jubilees. Its pages were written in a language resembling Hebrew but older, with symbols that curved like serpents and fractured like lightning. No ink seemed to have touched them. Instead, the words glowed faintly, as though burned into the parchment by fire from another realm. The monks believed the book to be not merely a record, but a map of time itself, dividing history into exact cycles, 49 years each, and proclaiming destinies that bound nations and kings. The first pages spoke of creation, not as Genesis had told it, but with details omitted from Scripture. It claimed that angels had measured the heavens long before Adam breathed, and that Jubilees, the great cycles of divine order, were etched into the very stones of the earth. Mountains rose and fell according to their rhythm, and empires flourished only to collapse when their allotted Jubilee was complete. According to the manuscript, Moses himself had received this book on Sinai, not from stone tablets, but from the mouth of an angel named Mastema, a spirit neither wholly loyal to God nor fully fallen. The angel had revealed to Moses the hidden architecture of history, telling him that even the rebellion of nations, the exile of Israel, and the rise of empires were all preordained by cycles older than time, yet the book carried warnings. It spoke of a final jubilee, when the cycles would no longer renew and the world would face its reckoning. In that age, knowledge would be scattered, and mankind would forget the patterns of time. Only those who recovered the book could restore the balance. The monks who kept the manuscript whispered that throughout history, kings, popes, and emperors had sought it, some believing it to contain the secret of immortality, others the code to predict the fall of rivals. Blood had been spilled for its possession. Crusaders had searched deserts for it, Templars had smuggled fragments across seas, and heretics had died by fire rather than surrender its pages. One fragment, known as the Codex of the 12th Jubilee, foretold that in the 49th generation from Abraham, a child would be born who bore the mark of both priest and warrior, destined to shatter kingdoms and raise a new covenant. Another fragment spoke of stars aligning over a crimson sky, signaling the last cycle. Scholars dismissed these as legends, yet the monks swore they had seen the signs, written in blood-red comets. The chronicle remained hidden, buried beneath stone until one storm-swept night, when a wandering pilgrim stumbled upon the ruined cloister. He carried no name, only scars and silence. By chance, or by design, he uncovered a sealed chamber, its door carved with symbols of fire and water. Within lay the book, resting on an altar of obsidian. As his hands touched it, the letters seemed to burn into his flesh, and visions of ages past and future flooded his mind. The pilgrim did not know how long he lay upon the stone floor after touching the book. His mind swam with visions, cities rising like towers of light, collapsing into dust, oceans boiling, stars trembling as if alive. When he awoke, the chamber was cold, though the words on the pages still shimmered faintly with fire. He opened the manuscript again, his trembling fingers tracing lines of symbols. The letters no longer resisted him. They unfolded like a voice in his skull, a whisper both familiar and alien. It was not Hebrew, nor Greek, nor Latin, but he understood it as though the meaning had been planted in his soul. I am the angel of cycles, appointed from the beginning, before the dust of Adam and the breath of Eve. To me was given the task to measure the jubilees, to set the rhythm of earth and heaven. The Most High decreed that nothing shall move outside the appointed times, not the rising of a king, nor the fall of a sparrow. The pilgrim felt his body shudder. The voice belonged neither to man nor beast. It was serene yet terrible. He turned the page, and the next passage glowed brighter. Know this, as the moon waxes and wanes, so do nations. As 7 days make a week, so 7 times 7 years make a jubilee. The earth itself is woven by these measures. Mountains lift in their time and crumble in their time. The proud are exalted in their jubilee, and the wicked are cast down when the count is finished. He who knows the number of jubilees knows the path of destiny. The pilgrim shut his eyes. Images pressed upon him. Moses at Sinai, but not as the scriptures told. Beside the fiery mountain stood a figure with wings of iron and eyes like molten bronze. The angel did not sing praises. Instead, he wrote in fire upon the ground, etching circles and numbers. Moses knelt, covering his face, while the angel spoke. This is the secret you must not tell the stiff-necked people, lest they corrupt it. Seal it in a book and let it pass only to those appointed, the pilgrim gasped. Could it be that the Book of Jubilees was not merely a human text, but a direct transcription of this angel's words? If so, then every event in history, every war, every kingdom was not chance, but a turning gear in a cosmic machine. As he read on, a terrible prophecy emerged. The Jubilees are numbered from the beginning, 22 from Adam to the flood, 22 from Noah to Abraham, 22 from Abraham to Moses. In the 12th Jubilee after Moses, the covenant shall fracture. In the 24th, kings shall bow to idols of their own blood. And in the 49th, the final cycle shall dawn. The stars shall burn red, and the great book shall be unsealed. Then the angel of cycles shall stand once more upon the earth to weigh the nations in his balance. The pilgrim's hands trembled. He counted silently, recalling scraps of history he knew. The numbers aligned in eerie precision, empires rising exactly as the Jubilees dictated. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, all crumbled at the appointed times. Even the long exile of Israel matched the angel's measure. He turned another page. This time, the writing was not prophecy but command. Guard these words, for they are not for all men. The ignorant will mock them. The proud will seek to twist them. The wicked will try to bind them to their own gain. Yet one must rise who is both priest and warrior, who shall read the cycles as I gave them. To him shall the world be restored or destroyed. A chill passed through him. Was he that chosen one? Or merely a thief who had stumbled upon a treasure meant for another? The chamber's air grew heavy, pressing upon his chest. The shadows seemed to move along the walls, curling like serpents. He turned his head sharply, convinced that someone was there but saw only emptiness. Still, the sensation of being watched would not leave. Then came the voice again, no longer from the page, but from the silence itself. You have broken the seal. Now you must bear the weight. The Jubilees cannot be unseen. The pilgrim staggered backward, his breath ragged. The book's letters flared, and in their glow he saw faces. Kings crowned in gold, prophets torn by fire, armies marching in endless succession. And above them all, the same angel, Mastema, the angel of cycles, towering like a shadow cast by eternity. He fled the chamber, clutching the book to his chest, though it burned his skin. Outside, the storm had grown fierce, the desert winds shrieking like spirits. Lightning struck the ruins, illuminating them in ghostly flashes. He stumbled through the sand, half mad, but the whispers followed him still, echoing in the storm. The cycles turn, the cycles turn. For days he wandered, unable to sleep. Wherever he looked, he saw patterns. The beating of his heart, the rise of the moon, the rhythm of footsteps, all part of the same eternal measure. The world was no longer random, but unbearably precise. Even his suffering seemed calculated, ordained by the Jubilee. At last, he reached a city. Its gates opened to him, and the people mistook him for a holy man, for the book glowed faintly beneath his cloak. He did not speak, for words failed him. Instead, he sat in the market square, and when he opened the manuscript, the crowd hushed. They felt the weight of its pages, though they could not read the letters. Whispers spread quickly. Some said a prophet had come, others claimed a madman. Priests warned the people not to listen, fearing blasphemy. But the rumor could not be silenced. The Book of Jubilees had returned, and with its return, the count of the final Jubilee had begun. The book did not rest quietly. Wherever the pilgrim carried it, the air seemed charged, as if the heavens themselves strained to listen. At night, dreams tormented him, stars dripping blood, rivers burning like oil, voices chanting in tongues older than the earth. When he woke, the words of the book pulsed like embers in his mind, demanding to be spoken aloud. One night, while resting at the edge of a city, he yielded to the voice. In the darkness of an abandoned chapel, he opened the Book of Jubilees and began to recite. His tongue, untrained in any sacred language, nevertheless shaped the ancient syllables with unnatural fluency. The walls trembled. Candles, though unlit, flared with blue fire. The pages glowed brighter than before, as if pleased to be heard after centuries of silence. In the 24th Jubilee from Moses, the text declared, the heavens shall display a sign, and those who watch shall know the measure of their days. The firmament shall be torn, and a crimson sky shall cover the nations. It shall be the herald of the last cycle, the beginning of the end. The pilgrim froze. He could feel the prophecy entering him, engraving itself into the marrow of his bones. He knew then that the crimson sky was not metaphor, but an event to come, a rupture in the heavens themselves. When he left the chapel, the city was not as it had been. Whispers spread that strange lights had been seen above the rooftops, like comets tangled in webs of fire. The priests, alarmed, denounced him as a blasphemer. But the people remembered the glow of the book, the tremors in the earth when he spoke, and they began to wonder, perhaps the last cycle had truly begun. The manuscript itself seemed eager to reveal more. As he turned the pages, fresh passages appeared, as though written at that very moment by an unseen hand. The crimson sky shall divide the faithful from the false. Kings shall tremble, for their crowns were not given but borrowed. Nations shall rise against nations, and brother shall strike brother. Yet the sign is not the end, but the trumpet that calls the angel of cycles to return. The pilgrim read on, his voice hoarse. When the heavens burn red, the hidden covenant shall awaken. One shall come bearing the dual mark, the seal of priest and the sword of warrior. He shall either bind the cycles anew or sever them forever. He could no longer escape the thought. Was the prophecy speaking of him? The scars on his arms, the strange fire in his eyes when he read, were these not signs? But doubt gnawed at him. He was no priest, no warrior, only a wanderer broken by years of exile. And yet the book clung to him as if by right. The city grew restless. Crowds gathered wherever he walked. Some demanded that he reveal the mysteries. Others cursed him as an agent of the devil. A council of priests summoned him to stand trial, their faces pale with fear. "Where did you find this book?" they demanded. He answered only, "I did not find it. It found me." They threatened him with imprisonment, but when they reached for the manuscript, their hands blistered as though touched by flame. Terror spread among them. They declared the pilgrim untouchable, neither man nor beast, but something in between. That very night the sky darkened with unnatural clouds. Thunder rolled without rain. At midnight the heavens split. A red blaze, vast and terrible, stretched across the firmament like a wound bleeding into the void. The city erupted in panic. Mothers clutched their children, soldiers fled their posts, priests wailed in despair. The pilgrim standing in the square lifted the book high. The pages fluttered of their own accord, glowing with the same crimson as the sky. The prophecy had begun. Days turned to weeks, and the crimson sky did not fade. Instead it deepened, staining moon and stars alike. Crops withered under its glare, rivers seemed to thicken with rust, and birds fell dead from the heavens. Rumors spread of distant kingdoms collapsing, of armies devouring themselves in madness. But not all despaired. Among the common people, a movement rose. They believed the pilgrim was the chosen one, the priest-warrior foretold. They brought him offerings of bread, wine, and oil, begging him to intercede with the angel of cycles. Yet he remained silent, tormented by visions too great to share. In his dreams, he stood on a mountain of ash, the crimson sky burning above. Before him loomed Mestima, the angel of cycles, vast and terrible. "The time has come," the angel thundered. "The cycles demand their reckoning. You have broken the seal. Will you be the binder or the severer?" The pilgrim fell to his knees. "I'm not worthy. I'm not chosen." But the angel only laughed, a sound like the cracking of stone. Worthiness is a word for men. The cycles care not for the weak or the strong. They require only the turning of the wheel. And you are the hand upon it. The pilgrim awoke in a cold sweat, his heart pounding like a drum. He could not escape the truth. Whether he wished it or not, the prophecy had chained itself to him. Word of the crimson sky spread beyond the city. Envoys from distant lands arrived, seeking the source of the disturbance. Some came to worship, others to kill. A secret council of rulers gathered, convinced that the pilgrim's book threatened their power. They dispatched assassins, armed with poisoned blades, to silence him and steal the manuscript, but none who touched it lived. Their flesh blackened, their bones crumbled, and the book remained untouched upon the altar where the pilgrim kept it. Each failed attempt only deepened the fear. This was no mere relic. It was the heartbeat of time itself, and always, above them, the crimson sky glared like an unblinking eye. The pilgrim knew then that he could no longer remain in the city. The book demanded movement, demanded the next stage of revelation. One night, guided by dreams, he set forth toward the desert once more. A small band of followers trailing after him. As they walked beneath the blood-red heavens, he whispered the words he could no longer keep contained. The 49th Jubilee has dawned. The world shall not turn again. The angel of cycles returns. And those who followed him wept, for they understood. History itself had reached its breaking point. The desert was silent except for the crunch of footsteps and the whispers of the wind. The pilgrim and those who followed him walked beneath the eternal crimson canopy, the sky no longer blue, but a wound stretching across the heavens. Every day it deepened, and the air grew heavier, as if time itself was suffocating. The band was small, a mother carrying her child, a soldier who had thrown down his sword, a scholar whose eyes glowed with fanatic fire, and a few beggars who had nothing left to lose. They called the pilgrim the keeper of the book. Some fell to their knees when he opened its pages, believing that with each word read aloud, another veil of the world was lifted. One evening at the edge of a dry riverbed, the pilgrim spoke for the first time since leaving the city. His voice was raw, as though torn from his chest. "The book does not belong to me," he said. "It belongs to the cycles, to all who live within them. I'm no master of it, only its witness." The soldier stepped forward, his scarred face lit by the red sky. "If you are only witness, then who shall lead us when the end comes?" The pilgrim did not answer, for he did not know. That night the book opened itself. The wind tore at its pages, but the words burned steady. A new chapter revealed itself, one he had never seen before. When the crimson sky endures, the covenant of ashes shall awaken. For the first covenant was written in stone, the second in blood, but the last shall be in fire and dust. It shall not be carried by nations, nor guarded by kings, but borne by the remnants, the broken and the cast out. They shall walk the desert as Israel once did, and from their ashes a new order shall rise. The words struck him like fire in the lungs. The followers saw the glow and fell upon their faces trembling. The mother clutched her child tighter, the soldier gripped his empty scabbard, and the scholar cried out in ecstasy, "This is the third covenant, the final binding. We are chosen to bear it." The pilgrim wanted to silence him, but the truth gnawed at his own heart. The book was clear. They were no longer merely wanderers. They had become the vessels of the covenant of ashes. The days that followed were trials of hunger and thirst. The desert stripped them bare, just as it had once stripped Israel. Some despaired and turned back, only to vanish into the sands. Others pressed on, convinced that the crimson sky was proof enough of their destiny. In visions, the pilgrim saw Moses again, yet not the lawgiver of Scripture. He saw Moses wandering the wilderness with a book of fire hidden beneath his cloak, whispering to angels no man could see. He saw the golden calf crumble not because of wrath, but because its time within the cycle had ended. Every act, every miracle, every judgment, nothing was random. It was all the turning of the wheel. The pilgrim woke from these visions drenched in sweat. The Book of Jubilees demanded not only faith, but obedience to the cycle. And obedience meant sacrifice. On the seventh night, the desert gave them no rest. A storm rose, red sand spiraling into the heavens like smoke from a furnace. The pilgrims huddled together while the keeper of the book stood alone against the storm. The manuscript glowed brighter than ever, shielding him with a faint circle of light. From within the storm, a voice thundered, not from the pages this time, but from the very air. The covenant of ashes must be sealed. Choose now, bind the cycles anew, or sever them forever. The pilgrim fell to his knees, clutching the book. How can I choose? I am dust and nothing more. The voice replied like grinding stone. Dust is all men are, but it is dust that carries the fire. Speak the words, and the covenant shall be written. The storm swallowed him. The others saw only shadows and heard cries torn from his throat. When it cleared, the pilgrim's face was burned, his eyes rimmed with blood, but the book was open upon a new page. The words there were terrible. To seal the covenant of ashes, the binder must offer the remnants in sacrifice. Their lives are the ink, their bones the parchment. From their ashes the new world shall be born. The pilgrim's stomach turned. His followers stared, pale with horror, yet none dared to speak. The scholar broke first. "It is true," he whispered. "It is written. We are chosen to die." The mother screamed, clutching her child, but the soldier gripped his empty hilt and said nothing. The pilgrim closed the book, trembling. Could the covenant truly demand such a price? Was this the justice of heaven or the cruelty of the angel of cycles? The nights grew longer. Some followers fled in fear, only to vanish, their cries lost in the dunes. The few who remained began to change. Their eyes glowed faintly red in the firelight. Their skin seemed dusted with ash. Whether it was madness or divine transformation, none could tell. The pilgrim himself grew gaunt, his flesh stretched tight upon his bones. Yet the book grew heavier in his hands, as though the cycles themselves pressed upon him. When he walked, he felt the desert shifting beneath his feet, the rhythm of the Jubilees beating like a second heart. One night he stood upon a dune and spoke aloud. The covenant is fire, the covenant is ashes. If we are to burn, then let us burn as the world burns, and from our dust may truth be born. The wind answered with silence, but the followers fell prostrate, weeping. They accepted their fate as the binding of time itself. Far away, in the courts of kings, word of the crimson sky and the pilgrim's covenant spread. Some rulers saw it as blasphemy, others as opportunity. Armies were whispered of, armies gathering not to fight nations, but to seize the book. For if the covenant of ashes was real, whoever controlled it could reshape the world. But the pilgrim knew the covenant could not be stolen. It was written not only in the book, but in the flesh of those who followed him. Their deaths, their ashes, were already inked upon the cycles. The crimson sky deepened, now streaked with black veins of darkness, as though the heavens themselves were rotting. The final Jubilee pressed closer with every heartbeat, and the book whispered again. The angel shall return, the covenant shall be tested, and the world shall be weighed in ashes. The pilgrim closed his eyes, and for the first time he prayed, not to God nor to man, but to the cycles themselves. The desert stretched endless beneath the crimson vault of heaven. By now, the pilgrim and his band were more spectres than men, their skin grey with ash, their eyes hollow. They no longer counted days. Time itself had unraveled, each hour indistinguishable from the next. Only the book endured, glowing like a coal that refused to die. It was on the 49th night that the sky cracked. At first, it was a sound like distant thunder, but deeper, heavier, as though the firmament itself was splitting. Then the crimson clouds tore open, and from the rift poured light unlike any the earth had seen, neither fire nor sun, but molten bronze. The sand burned where it touched, and the air reeked of iron. The followers fell to their knees, screaming. The pilgrim alone stood, clutching the book. He knew the voice before it came, for he had heard it in visions, in dreams, in the whispers of his own blood. The cycles are fulfilled. The final Jubilee has dawned. I return to weigh the nations. Out of the rift descended Mastema, the angel of cycles. His wings were vast sheets of iron, his face both beautiful and terrible, shifting like molten stone. His eyes were orbs of fire that saw not flesh, but time itself. Moments unraveling like threads, destinies coiled like serpents. The pilgrim collapsed to his knees. The book vibrated in his hands, the letters searing bright. Mastema's voice shook the desert. You have borne the covenant of ashes. Now the choice lies before you. Bind the wheel or sever it. The pilgrim's lips cracked as he whispered, I am unworthy. I am only dust. Mastema's gaze pierced him. Dust is the measure of all men, yet you carry the book. You opened the seal. Worthiness is irrelevant. Only choice matters. The followers wept and tore their garments. The mother held her child close, whispering prayers. The soldier stood trembling, fists clenched, though his sword was long gone. The scholar cried out with madness, Seal it! Seal the covenant! Let us burn so the world may be reborn. The pilgrim turned the book open. Its pages blazed as if the sun itself had descended. A new passage formed before his eyes, one he had never read. To bind the cycles, offer the remnants, and let the wheel turn again. To sever the cycles, cast the book into the fire, and time shall end. He stared, horror-stricken. To bind meant sacrifice, his followers reduced to ashes, their blood the ink of the covenant. To sever meant annihilation, not only of them, but of the world itself. Mastema extended a hand, vast as the horizon. Choose. The pilgrim's mind tore between visions. In one, he saw the covenant bound, the crimson sky fading, nations restored to order, empires rising once more on the wheel of jubilees. But it was endless repetition, suffering, war, exile, and death again and again, forever. In the other, he saw severance, the wheel shattering, the cycles undone. The crimson sky consumed the earth, the seas boiled, the mountains fell. But in the silence after, there was peace. No cycles, no bondage of time, only nothingness. Tears scorched his cheeks. How can a man choose between slavery and oblivion? Mastema's wings spread wide, casting shadows that swallowed the desert. It is not for men to choose, yet you must. The soldier spoke then, voice hoarse but steady. Keeper, if our blood restores the world, then take it. Let us be the sacrifice. The mother cried out in anguish. And my child, shall he be ashes too? What covenant is worth the death of the innocent? The scholar shrieked, eyes alight with madness. Do it, let us burn. The wheel must turn. The pilgrim closed his eyes. His hands shook as he held the book. Its weight was unbearable, as if all history pressed upon him. He raised it high, the fire of its words spilling into the night. And then he spoke, I reject both fates. The desert stilled, even the storm winds fell silent. Mastema's eyes blazed hotter. You cannot reject the cycles. They are eternity itself. But the pilgrim's voice grew stronger, though his body trembled. I am dust, yes, but dust can defy. If the wheel brings only chains, and severance brings only void, then I choose neither. I choose the fire of freedom. He hurled the book into the burning sand. The ground split. The book struck the earth and burst open, its letters exploding like sparks. The desert ignited, flames rising that were not fire, but pure time unraveling. The followers screamed, their bodies dissolving into dust, their voices joining the roar of eternity. Mastema roared in fury. His iron wings cracked, his molten face twisted. "Fool! You have unmade the measure. Without the wheel, nothing endures." But even as he spoke, his form fractured, his body splitting into shards of shadow and light. The cycles themselves tore him apart, for without the book, without the covenant, the angel of cycles had no anchor. He dissolved into the crimson sky, screaming with the sound of 1,000 collapsing empires. The pilgrim stood alone, the flames consuming all around him. His flesh burned, but he did not scream. He felt himself unraveling, his bones turning to dust, his blood to ash. Yet in that dissolution, there was no despair. For the first time, the world was free. The crimson sky shattered into darkness. The stars winked out, the earth fell silent. Time itself ceased to turn, and in that silence there was peace. Centuries passed. The crimson sky faded from memory, spoken of only in the whispers of grandmothers and the songs of wandering bards. Scholars dismissed the tale as myth, the fevered dream of a nameless prophet lost in the desert. Kingdoms rose and fell, empires bled into dust, and the world turned as if nothing had ever broken, and yet in the ruins of forgotten monasteries, fragments of parchment still burned faintly with words no scholar could translate. They called them the Ash Scrolls, charred, brittle relics that resisted fire, inked in letters of impossible firelight. One fragment told of a crimson sky that split the heavens. Another spoke of an angel with wings of iron. A third carried only 4 words, repeated again and again: "The wheel is broken." The church condemned the scrolls as heresy. Those who studied them too deeply vanished, their names erased from records. But whispers spread among the learned. If the wheel of Jubilees was truly shattered, then history itself was unmoored, and the future could no longer be predicted. Still, some argued otherwise. If the wheel had broken, they said, why do the seasons still turn? Why do the stars still rise? They claimed the scrolls were lies, inventions of zealots or demons. Yet in the margins of one fragment, written in trembling script, a scribe left a final note. The pilgrim chose neither binding nor severance, but freedom. Thus the cycles ended. What follows now is no longer written. We walk unwritten paths. Generations later, a new order of monks arose in the mountains of the east. They claimed descent from those who had followed the pilgrim into the desert. Their robes were grey with ash, their foreheads marked with a circle of dust. They named themselves the Order of the Ashen Covenant. To outsiders, they spoke only of silence and humility. But among themselves, they preserved a hidden tradition, the story of the keeper of the book, the man who defied the angel of cycles and unmade the measure of time. They believed that when he cast the book into the fire, its letters did not die. They scattered into the air, into the blood of men, into the beating of hearts. Every living soul now carried fragments of the cycles within them. The covenant had not ended. It had dissolved into humanity itself. No angel, no king, no priest could control it any longer. But freedom was not peace.